Just as the waves of the ocean periodically change the sea levels, so have the ever-rising demands of developing Kenya triggered periodic change of our education system.
Now the sun is setting on the 844 system as it rises on the new kid on the block, the competency-based curriculum.
Tonight on Prime Edition, everything else is on the back burner as we bring you a 2-hour special bulletin themed around the state of CBC.
What are the challenges facing the current transition?
How is the country navigating through the changing tides in the education sector?
And from Mombasa, we have our very own Kioria, who is going to be engaging Robert Opemi, the chair of the Parents Association, as well as Honorable Badi Twalib, Member of Parliament, Jomvu. And
here in Nairobi, we'll be hosting Senator Joe Nyoto. He's the Education Committee Chair in the Senate, as well as the Murang'a County Senator. You also have Dr. James Sierra, the Kenya County Lead Toweza East Africa, as well as Silas Obuhatsa, the Chairperson, Kenyan National Parents Association.
And from the capital city, we head to Kisumu, where our very own Simon Achola is going to be engaging none other than the Director, Golden Elite Schools and Chair of the Private Schools Association. And away from matters, such matters in Kisumu, we are going to be in Kajiado with our very own Serafina Robbie, who is going to be engaging the pastoralist communities, looking at the challenges therewith in as far as matters of education.
Of course, there you have it. That's our crew. We're live from Mombasa. You can see Janae Karisa. We also have Simon Achola from Kisumu and indeed Serafina Robbie from Kajiado. We continue to engage them. That's our crew. And of course, ready and stand by for the live panel discussions. Welcome to the Changing Tides with me, John Jacob Kioria.
And I am Regina Manyara.
Good evening. Let's begin right on. Of course, you've seen the pictures right there of our crews in the different places across the country. But of course, you have a big question tonight that will be engaging to hear what your view is really on this program that is CBC. So the big question tonight, we're asking you, what is your view on CBC? What is your view on CBC? Regina, our social handles.
It is at KBC Channel 1 News, at Ray Manyara, and at JJ Kioria, right?
At J. Kioria.
J. Kioria.
All right. The big question once again, what is your view on CBC? You can leave us your comment on our Facebook page at KBC Channel 1, on Twitter at KBC Channel 1, at Ray Manyara, and of course at J. Kioria, or on Twitter as well as on Facebook. And of course, we shall be sampling them within the course of the broadcast. To begin us off, the Ministry of Education says there is no turning back on the competence-based curriculum.
Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Mashogu, while defending the new system, said a report by a task force commissioned by the President returned positive findings on the competency-based curriculum, promising to address emerging teething problems.
Mashogu said the government was flexible on the student population requirement for grade 7, which is already under implementation in vast marginal areas.
Mnafanya homework mpaka saa 8 ya usiku. Mnafanya homework. So tutapunguza mambo ya CBC. Mumesikia siku 2 zilizopita nimetengeneza task force maalum ya kuangalia mambo ya CBC. Ili CBC iweze kusaidia watoto wetu.
A greater percentage of Kenyans say yes, we have few challenges which we will be able to handle as a country, which we will be able to mitigate by taking various measures which as a government and a ministry will be able to undertake. But generally, Kenyans are at a level where they accepted that we should be able to go ahead with the CBC.
Now, immediately after independence in 1963, there was a need to have a single educational system away from the stratified pre-independence one, in which there was an African education, European and Asian.
So the 7, 4, 7-4-2-3 system, or A-level, was birthed, lasting 21 years, followed by the 8-4-4, which lasted 32 years, being replaced by the competency-based curriculum, CBC.
Judy, the caller takes you through the 3 transitions and what to expect going forward with the CBC or the 26333 system of education introduced in 2017.
President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta.
The Omide Commission of 1964 came up with the 7-4-2-3 system of education with the aim of creating a single nation that reflected the nation's sovereignty away from the stratified system that had African education, Asian, and European. However, by 1970, there were jitters over the lack of capacity and flexibility for the 7-4-2-3 to respond to the changing aspirations of the labor market needs due to the lack of new skills, technologies, and general attitude towards work. The system was seen as too academic, yet the rate of unemployment was rising year after year. The notion that education was the main medium for social mobility and national economic development began to fade away. Calls for a change in the education system culminated in the McKay Commission report of 1982, which saw the introduction of the 8-4-4 system of education in 1985. The new system was seen as the panacea to the unemployment debacle, as it would equip learners with employable skills, ending up in either self-employment or secure employment in the informal sector. It recommended more science streams in schools, mathematics, as well as technical and vocational subjects in order to have more learners get skilled. 8-4-4 started meeting resistance immediately after introduction, as it was thought to be broad, expensive, and burdensome. The Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development Evaluation came up with a damning report that seems to have sounded the death knell on the 8-4-4 system. The report indicated that the 8-4-4 system was examination-oriented, put more emphasis on content coverage, lacked special needs curriculum, ICT infrastructure, and career guidance. The system could not train employable people as had been envisaged.
One of the biggest accusations of 8-4-4 is that children.
All right, now parents with children in the competency-based curriculum cite its high financial demands during implementation and inadequate of the trained teachers are inadequately trained.
Now, as Kamche Menza reports, a section of parents say the confusion experienced by the recent junior secondary school transition should be a wake-up call to authorities to seal the loopholes for a much easier system shift in the future.
In the outskirts of Kakamega town, we meet Hawa Asania, a parent with 2 children in the competency-based curriculum system, both in public schools. I engage her to pick her brain about the CBC, a system that has been in place close to 5 years since it was rolled out in 2017.
CBC is not bad because it gives the children at least skills that they can apply, and it also observes when it nurtures the talents of the children.
Phyllis Amondi, a food vendor in Lavington but living in Kawangware, is however skeptical.
Nasema siipendi kabisa. Watoto hawachukui time kukaa kwa nini kwa kitabu kama kitambo, wasome wa nini, watilie bidii kwa nini kwa masomo. Mtoto nini kazi yake akuja kuuliza nataka mayai, mara nataka sijui kijiti ya nini, nataka mfupa. Sasa hizo ni za nini?
Innocent Misiko, a parent in Nairobi with an experience for both the 8-4-4 and the CBC systems, and Sharon Michena, who transferred her children to a CBC system from the British system, are positive about the competency-based curriculum. Their children are enrolled in private schools.
They're more innovative and creative in how they do things.
Where we teach our children where the sources of knowledge are and how to apply them, and not to retain theoretical knowledge. That is why I'm a proponent of the CBC.
Like many other parents, share the view that the system is financially draining.
You pay fee And then after some times, each and every time a child comes and tells you, Mother, we have been told to bring this, we want to bring this.
Mara sijui ya mtihani 200. Jana niliambiwa sijui nipeane 200, sijui wanataka kwenda wapi, sijui Kasarani.
We had to buy a printer, which also helped with the photocopying, because every other homework, requires printing. We had to invest in the internet facilities.
Wakati tumeenda pale kama wazazi nikarealize ya kwamba only 2 students out of 68 ndio wanaweza fanya computer and sciences kulingana na hizo subjects, kwa ajili ya kwamba hawana laptops. Hizo computers lazima ukue nazo kwa manyumba.
Hatuoni uzuri yake. Watoto wanaenda tu na wanarudi. Hata watoto wenyewe wamestress. Wanasema tena wa vitabu vingine ya CBC ndio wanaongoja.
Inakuwa shida watoto wetu kwa vile walimu ni wachache. Pastoralist kabisa wameshinda kuelewa. Nidhamu ile imepitiwa. Sasa tunaomba serikali waweke nidhamu kama 844.
The government should have devised, in my opinion, CBC in a way that you've got your base subjects that everyone should be able to do, and they should be able to be rolled out across all schools easily. Then anything else on top should be a la carte for schools to be able to pick. It should not be whole scale that you all have to apply all these subjects, and you have some schools that can do it better, and then you have some schools that are not able to do it at all.
The government is on record that CBC is here to stay, and despite the teething problems, parents can only hope that the system will improve, devoid of confusion for smooth transition. Kamche Menza for Prime Edition, Nairobi.
Now, the learner-teacher ratio in the newly introduced junior secondary school stands out as a key challenge, at least going by a spot check by KBC Channel 1.
In one school in Nairobi County, for instance, with 975 grade 7 learners, only 5 teachers have been posted to the school by the Teacher Service Commission.
This coupled with the challenge of inadequate classrooms.
However, this is in contrast to the scenario in private schools, as Ben Chumba now reports.
3 weeks after the pioneer batch of the competency-based curriculum learners joined junior secondary school after completing the first level of the new education system,
What is the face value?
the challenges teachers face, especially in public junior secondary schools, are becoming clear.
What is the total value of visit?
A spot check by KBC Channel 1 has established a substantial number of public schools in the country lag behind in corresponding the junior secondary schools.
Which requested our parents to support us in terms of writing materials as we wait the government to give us a way forward. So learning is going on through the support of the parents.
At Visa Oswald Primary and Junior Secondary School, a public primary school in Baringo County, only 5 teachers manage 188 grade 7 learners who are supposed to take 14 lessons in a day.
Though this is not enough, other teachers, the regular teachers, are supporting the team.
The situation appears more challenging at Kwanjenga Primary and Junior Secondary School, a public institution in Nairobi with 975 grade 7 learners. Only 5 teachers were recently posted by the Teacher Service Commission, TSC. The learners are in 22 classrooms, some with 60 learners, compared to the standard maximum of 45. The state of affairs is not different at Westland School in Nairobi, where 288 students are enrolled at grade 7, with only 4 teachers responsible for 4 streams, each stream with 72 learners. The Teacher Service Commission admits that there is a shortage of teachers in the junior secondary school, saying the government is looking into the issue.
There are teachers who have gone back to school and are graduates and who have the requisite qualifications and actually have the 2 teaching subjects. And since they are trained in secondary education, the TSC is trying to map them, in addition to the 30,550 teachers whom we have already recruited.
The spot check also reveals most public schools, particularly in the North Rift, lack laboratories and the necessary learning material for junior secondary school, as the government is yet to release capitation funds for the construction of classrooms and other facilities.
As a teacher in such an area, you have to go an extra mile and come up with how you can use the locally available resources to ensure that the learner is still getting the skill. So maybe for them, I know it is challenging, but then let them go out of their way to get locally available facility or resources to still ensure that the competency is getting into the learner.
This is in contrast with some of the private facilities where teachers have an easier time in matching the junior secondary school, as majority of private schools have made notable investments on the required physical infrastructure.
For a CBC class to be viable, you need 5 teachers in that class. A teacher is only a facilitator. It is supposed to be student-centered. So the student is actually supposed to be the driver.
Grade 7 class, we have 32 boys. We have arranged them in groups of 4-4. So we have 8 working areas where they are 4-4 seated to enhance collaboration, one of the core competencies of CBC.
Merisho School, a private institution with only 30 grade 7 learners, has a functional science laboratory and an information communication technology center.
We already have a wild learning place for the field events. So like if they're learning about a different kind of a game or a different kind of a skill in football, a skill in volleyball, the resources are already there in place. So we take the learners out together with a well-trained coach for that, and then the learners are equipped.
The school chief principal and former Alliance High School principal David Kariuki admits that putting in place enough infrastructure has not been a walk in the park, though he says it is worthwhile.
We have some students here who come to whom we allow, or their parents correct them on Friday, the class for class 7, grade 7. Parents correct them on Friday, go stay with them on Friday evening, and go and stay with them throughout Saturday, and they bring them back on Sunday evening, so that the idea of the homesick is not there.
Ben Chumba, Prime Edition.
You are watching Changing Tides edition right here, and we're all focused on the competency-based curriculum. And tonight, we seek your views on the CBC. Big question being, what are your views on CBC? Get tweeting. Our Twitter handle is at KBC Channel 1. Then we have at Ray Manyara and at J Kioria.
What is your view on CBC is our question tonight. Right about now, we want to head over to Kisumu. Our reporter Simon Achola is on standby. Let's get a feel of what Kisumu thinks about the competency-based curriculum. Simon, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, John, Jacob, Kioria, and Regina. Manyara right there in Broadcasting House. Indeed, we are here at Golden Elites. It is an academy, of course, in this part of this county. And we are continuing, of course, with what is happening. The theme of today is to check what is happening, a spot check on exactly what is happening across institutions across this county. And, of course, there are myriad of challenges, especially in public schools, but in most of the private schools that we've actually toured and did spot check, things are slightly different. In this class, we have about 35 learners who are actually using this classroom, but in other areas, and especially public institutions, that will be a totally different situation altogether. However, Regina and Jacob, my focus today is, of course, to get to understand how the teachers are actually adapting to the new curriculum and how they have actually ensured the transition is smooth, so that then the learners can actually get the best out of them. So I'll just talk to about 2 teachers who have been waiting for us here, so then they get to give us an insight of exactly how they are feeling about this new transition. And Mwalimu, good evening. Yes, can you kindly introduce yourself?
I'm Onyango Fidel Castro. Yes, I teach at Golden Elites, teaching junior secondary and also the upper primary.
Mr. Nyango, the transition from the normal 7 subjects to what we're having now, which is about 14 subjects, how has it been for you teachers?
It has been hectic. Personally, if you check initially, when we used to have the 844 system, we used to have 5 subjects or 5 learning areas in the 844 system. And now when you go to the CBC, that is now the grade 6, who now transitioned now to junior secondary, the learning areas have been increased to 14 because we have 12 compulsory learning areas and then 2 optional subjects. So this one, in terms of maybe personnel and also maybe in terms of making the learners adapt to these new learning areas, have been a great challenge, especially the learners who are used to having less learning areas as compared to what they have right now.
The learners, it has been difficult for the learners, as you put it. What about the teachers? Have we had sufficient training so that then we can actually handle the learners and also ensure that we usher in the learners to the new system to the best of our ability?
Yes, in Golden, and when I speak about now us in Golden, we have had in-service training. Since last year, teachers have been inducted about how they're supposed to handle the junior secondary, and they are well prepared. And even if you check at the beginning of this year, we had enough training. And I think our teachers here at Golden, they are really prepared for this, and they were ready. So maybe in terms of, or to the side of the teachers were already prepared because they knew what they are going to meet in the field. Maybe the kids who are now joining us, they were a bit shocked because they thought they will get the same learning areas that they had before. Yes.
In our side chat, in our side, just move this side a bit. In our side chat, you indicated to me that the institution has done quite a lot in terms of ensuring that they build the capacity of the teachers to handle learners and, of course, the new CBC. But you also expressed concern as to how teachers, especially in public institutions, are actually grappling with the new changes.
Yeah, maybe in our spot check, if we compare now the public schools which have been around, if you compare maybe private schools, we have enough resources because we were prepared. We knew very well that this one will require some extra task. Maybe if I just try to compare, maybe sometimes when we talk with our co-teachers who are maybe in public, when they compare maybe our preparedness for this junior secondary and them, then you realize that we are far much ahead of them. In terms, maybe let's take for example laboratory. If you go to public schools, you realize that a school maybe some of the public schools are lacking the lab. But with us in junior, in private schools, you realize that the management came up with this early enough.
Early enough and actually prepared.
Yeah.
Where does it put the learners? Where does it put the learners? Because ultimately, they'll be sitting for the same exams.
Yes. Now, this one is a question of who is right and who is wrong. Because if you now see in private school, they already have everything. They are prepared. And it's like you are going to play football, and one team has trained enough as opposed to the other team which has not yet trained. So how do you think how the two teams play?
Finally, Mwalimu.
Yes.
We have started this new curriculum, right?
Yes.
And we are right into it.
Yeah.
How then do we make it better, in your own opinion, having experienced this first cohort? How do we make it better so that then when you're moving forward, then our children can actually get the best out of us?
Yeah, I think, here I'll talk about now the private schools. I think maybe with how we do it, because we have enough teachers who have been trained. So I think also in other sectors or in other areas, they need to include more in-service training for the teachers so that when they are handling this, because it is a new thing, by the way, and when they are trained, I think they'll be able not to deliver it effectively. Then again, in terms of resources, we need to invest more on resources because this CBC and junior secondary will require enough. We need these resources so that we effectively deliver. Yeah, without this, then delivery will be poor.
But of course, this is a challenge that you confidently put it that it is something that can be surmounted.
Yeah, it can be surmounted. If at all we are serious about it, then we can surmount, because there are some resources that you don't need to buy. There are some that we can improvise. There are some that we can prepare early enough. So again, you see, the parental engagement is also another issue, because you realize that when you request for something, assuming, for example, in public school, when they request for something from parents, we might not put it that parents don't know, but maybe they need kind of sensitization so that they know that actually, at the end of the day, this thing will benefit their kids. So if they're not sensitized, then in the long run, it is the kids who are going to suffer, because the teachers maybe might lack that which the parents should have provided if they were sensitized early enough.
Fantastic, Fidel. Of course, I had anticipated that probably we'll have a chance for the second teacher to give his perspective, but of course, we had pressed for time. So I will hand over straight to my colleague, Wycliffe, who is on the other side, so that then he can actually get insight over exactly how the learners are feeling about the new changes and how they're actually coping. Straight to you, Wycliffe.
Thank you so much, my colleague Charles Simon. Of course, every stakeholder has something to say about this new curriculum, being a transition from the 844 to the new curriculum CBC. There are teething challenges, like you've rightly discussed with the teacher right there, and we've also had the perspective of the parents also, even as the government says there's not a vast gear for the implementation of the CBC curriculum. But then again, who is directly involved with this curriculum now? That is the learner, and at this point I will engage just a few of the learners here also to get their perspective. How are they adapting, and what is their general feel about this all new curriculum? JJ, and let me just start with you. If you can just rise up a bit. Yeah, just stand there and introduce yourself.
My name is Tessie Flavi. I'm in grade 7 and I'm a JSS, which stands for Junior Secondary School candidate.
All right, that is wonderful. And what subject? I can see that there is a book just before you. What subject is this?
This is CRE. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. You are one of the pioneer members of this rollout. How do you feel generally about this all new curriculum?
In my opinion, I think that this curriculum is very helpful to all of us, because the subjects that we learn can help us to get money-generating careers in future. Yeah.
All right. And eventually, when you're done with this, with the curriculum, eventually when you're done with the education, what do you hope to become later?
I hope to be a doctor when I grow up. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And given now the working unit, rather the 14 learning areas that you have been tasked to handle on your way up to becoming a doctor, what do you think will help you achieve all that? Are you going to work closely with your teachers, with your fellow learners?
I think that revising and listening to the teachers in class will help me to achieve my dream of becoming a doctor. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So far, it is now 3 weeks since you stepped into this class as a grade 7. What has been so challenging to you?
Keeping track with the subjects. There are 14, right? There are many, but I'll just keep on trying hard to revise and remember everything that you are being taught. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Trying to remember everything that you're taught, probably. In which way do you think your teacher can also help you remember everything that you are taught?
When you don't understand anything in class, you can go and ask your teacher on which point you didn't understand.
Well, thank you so much. Jay, there is another learner here that I will engage also to get their perspective on exactly how these CBC, how the learners generally feel about it. If you can just try sharp a bit and you just move here. I'm sorry for hearing there. Yeah, you're going to look into the camera. Introduce yourself first.
My name is Nisia Afin. It's Junior High School.
And what subject is that you're studying?
I'm studying English.
Mm-hmm.
Well, indeed, this is special coverage of what is happening, and we're talking about matters of the competency-based curriculum. We have been having that candid conversation all the way live from Kisumu with Achola Simon. We'll get back to him, seeing that he is going to be having also a one-on-one with none other than the director of the Golden Elite Schools, as who is also the chair of the Private Schools Association. But for now, we take a quick breather. We'll be back with more. Remember, you're watching the changing tides of the Prime Edition, KBC Channel 1. Do not go away.
Nimesahau kucheza Loto Moto. Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number 757070. Account number andika neno Loto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000.
Aulali.
Lipa kisha subiri draw. Welala. Nitakutimizia ndoto zako. Milioni 2 usiamini. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLB.
Enjoy a selection of the best. Regina Ray and Team Garzi.
Bado hujamwambia unamlike. Umerealize jamwachilia mkono kutoka nikuje hapa.
Love blossoms in Mexico with the Trier sisters in Las Bandidas.
I beg you, please don't go.
I want you to be the happiest man in the world with a woman who appreciates and respects you.
An array of music rave.
Make me lie when I don't want to.
Blues.
You are my everything.
Two local gems. And we sit to chat with the Diambo.
You know, I can't even tell whether you're looking at me, seeing me. With the Louis Vuitton.
Classic comedy.
Makono too. Hey, mashabiki. Say that again.
Enjoy the Divas programming this February only on KBC Channel 1. Kenya's watching.
I'm Marie Yangbo here in the southern parts of the country in Oloitoktok, where, as you can see, farmers have lost their crops to the ongoing drought. Some families are even feeling the pressure to marry off their girls for an income. That story coming soon on KBC Channel 1.
Welcome back, still watching the changing tides right here on KBC Channel 1. We'll be here up until 11. We want to really check into some of the challenges that are being faced by the students in CBC, the parents, and of course all stakeholders. And a little bit later, Regina will be bringing you some statistics done by Tuaweza East Africa on the 14th of February, really showing what are the reactions of parents, particularly when it comes to their support or otherwise of the competency-based curriculum. But now in studio, I have Senator Joe Nyoto. He's the Senator for the County of Murang'a and also the Chair of Education Committee in the Senate, who also joins us this evening. Karibu sana, Senator. We also have Silas Obuhatsa, the Chairperson of the Kenya National Parents Association, and also Dr. James Sierra of the Kenya County Lead Tuaweza East Africa. All of you gentlemen are very much welcome. You know, coming from Kisumu, Senator, and looking at some of the reactions you're seeing there, of course you see comfort from the junior secondary school students, and the school is well prepared. But then again, looking at the stories that we've seen before, it casts a different picture when it comes to what we are seeing in public schools. As a Senator of the Republic of Kenya, as a Chairperson of Education Committee in the Senate, what would you say when you take stock about public schools and junior secondary school?
Thank you very much, and I think I will start by maybe going back a little into what has been happening under CBC. And this is the same thing that I have said in the Senate this evening. that up until around December, every one of us thought that junior secondary schools or junior secondary school was going to be domiciled in secondary schools until the president received a report of the Presidential Working Party on electoral reforms. And so that junior secondary school will be domiciled in primary school happened just the other day. And so the fact is that primary schools, as we have them now, we had them, were not prepared for junior secondary school until very recently. The private schools you see doing very well with junior secondary school are schools that had already prepared to admit junior secondary school and had already put all the facilities and all the preparations in place. And that is the difference in my view. So then what needs to be done is that in my view that government needs then to also work or move with speed. See to it, of course, I know there have been those plans, for example, where we need science laboratories, so that nearby secondary schools can share the facilities that they have with them, which, I mean, lab facilities and that kind of thing, which is a little bit disturbing also because the existing secondary schools also do not have enough resources, especially labs. But in a nutshell, I think I would want to say that this is just a teething problem, and with time, we are going to catch up. I have had an opportunity to, in my committee, to talk to the CEO of TSC, Teacher Service Commission, Dr. Nancy Macharia, and she says that she's addressing, the commission is addressing the crisis in primary schools. And I know that you have, I saw you running that clip, that one thing is that government employed, TSC employed about 30,000 teachers.
Yes. Let me cut you short, Senator, because I will get to the point of staffing at some point. Just hold it. But very quickly, in a minute, because of the situation that is painted there, and of course, Senator paints, a situation where you would say are teething problems, like he says. But the question that lingers in my mind is education still an equalizer then? That if you're going to have people, some of them have a smooth start, the others not really so smooth. Silas.
Thank you very much. Just to add on what the Senator has said, children are always children. When we look at the children in public schools and we look at those that are in private schools, there's sometimes a big difference. Why? Private schools are in business, serious business. Public schools are there and mostly they depend on the government. And therefore, that's why you see that in public schools, we have many children and the population is very high compared to private schools. So when we come to the issues of CBC, private schools, as you said, they began preparing long time ago. As soon as the CBC concept was introduced, it's as if they were like prophets that in future, junior secondary school may be held within the primary premises in the country. So they prepared, put their structures in place. When you go and, like a few schools I've visited, they have got very good labs, and we have just seen one. I've just even seen a school called Merisho. It looks like a university. And such a school, you can't compare that to, maybe for example, like Westland's private school, the public school. However, we are saying this, that we don't have to discourage public schools from going on. They have to go on because these are government schools. They are cheap in terms of affording compared to the private school sector. And because of that, if you compare the two, what we need to do is to encourage the parents in Kenya and the government not to give up on CBC. It must be there to stay because already it has come. The reason being, look at the old system 7, the CP system, where it was. It took about 20 years. Now, KCP has taken about 30 years. So if you talk about again now extending the KCP again, then it may end up losing its meaning. Because at least every education system has to change at one particular time.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold that thought. We'll continue, of course, with that conversation. But let me bring in Daktari. In 1 minute, your quick comment, the imbalance that we are seeing between public schools and primary schools. I'm sure you did. The sample size didn't really factor on whether it was private or public. You just looked at awareness and the embracing of CBC, as it were. But your quick comment on the imbalance between public schools and private schools.
Thank you for the opportunity. Getting back to the design of the survey, it was a household survey. So we targeted household. We didn't go specifically to whether it's a public or private school. But as you're putting it, I think one of the challenges that was identified with 844, it's like it was promoting divergence. And you know, when we have such a situation, you find if you're from a rich family, you end up being richer, as in having access to all the resources and all that. And I believe that's one of the reasons why we had to find a solution such that we can have some convergence, whereby we have even people from very poor schools being able to go to university, taking courses like medicine. I'm looking at the current 844, you find somebody enrolls in a private primary school. I want to see how divergent the system used to be. And then from there, gets to private and a good primary school, then heads to one of the best public secondary school, and then goes to the university. You can see how bad the situation is. So it's kind of getting to the same shape or pattern, because I'm seeing so many people withdrawing their children from public junior secondary school, switching to private, because if they're not teachers, no facilities, what do they do? Because one thing, we can't just stop time itself, as in say, like, let's wait for all these things to be implemented. What should we do? So if we are not careful enough, as Mweshima has put it, if we are not going to move with speed, we might find the tide moving to the other side in favor of the private schools.
All right. And of course, the Senator will tell us about what TSE has said in terms of staffing to ensure that CBC, again, is the teachers are adequately prepared, and of course they are enough. But in the meantime, let's just see how the JSS, Junior Secondary School, students took off. That's about 3-4 weeks ago. Regina?
Indeed. Now, overstretched resources and understaffing have been identified as some of the challenges facing schools in their efforts to accommodate grade 7 learners. In some schools, 3 students are forced to share a single desk and learning materials such as textbooks. Here's Nancy Kioria with the details of the delicate balance and the determination of schools to keep up with the curriculum despite the insurmountable odds.
Packed in threes but determined to learn regardless of the existing challenges. This image paints a vivid picture of the obtaining situation in various schools across the country. In Nairobi County, a good number of schools registered 100% turnout when they opened their doors to grade 7 learners on 30th of January.
We received the learners on time, and they were ready teachers who were there before, though we have also enrolled in 3 more teachers to come and help with the 14 subjects.
But even other parents could come asking for admission, but we as the school, we decided to have a manageable number that is teachable.
The subjects that we've been learning in the primary school was very different. Like in science, we're learning 3 combined studies like physics, chemistry, and biology. And junior secondary has been fun. We are learning new things.
Olympic Primary School in Kibra churned out 732 learners from grade 6, but registered 957 in grade 7. At Ayani Primary School, more numbers. 160 students graduated grade 6, but the school ended up admitting 198 in grade 7. The government says it has a plan, one that will ensure schools such as this one are well equipped with infrastructure to facilitate learning.
These questions of congestion is a very temporary problem, challenges, and in anything you are starting, you are supposed to have this problem.
The domiciling of the junior secondary in primary schools appears to have blindsided many institutions, some of whom are struggling to cope but choose to put a brave face. Analysts say that the bittersweet impact of the 100% transition policy will be felt in months to come.
We are transitioning into senior secondary. I expect that we won't have problems, as much problems as we've had with the junior secondary, because at least by that time, there will be Form 1 and Form 2 streams of classes that would have exited. So there will be enough sitting space for the learners.
For now, issues of immediate concern are being addressed, even though Kenyans will have to wait as the Working Party on Education Reforms files its recommendations, which will then provide a clear roadmap on the complete adoption or tweaking of the competency-based curriculum. Nancy Okware, Prime Edition.
From that spot check in regard to transition matters, we take you to County 034, where Serafina Robi is live to bring us up to speed with how schools among the pastoralist communities are handling the issue of CBC in light of challenges including the ongoing drought.
Indeed, a very good evening, Regina. We are coming to you live from Kajiado County, which is county number 34, which has over 1 million people residents here at Kajiado County. And it's a county that experiences a lot in terms of drought, the effects of drought. And given that today we are focusing on matters education, especially matters junior secondary schools, and also the competency-based curriculum, I have about 3 guests on set to get to elaborate and break down matters education. With me to my far right is Peter Namasaka. To my left is Peter Namasaka, who is the deputy head teacher of Kajiado Primary School. And also we have Gashon Mwakazi, who is the director, disaster management, World Vision. And I also have Jeremiah Olencharo, who is the CEC Education, Kajiado County. Karibuni sana. Okay, so tonight we're going to focus on matters junior secondary schools as well as CBC, and to get to understand what's happening here at Kajiado County, I'm going to start with the teacher, who is Peter Namasaka. Mwalimu, perhaps explain to us, elaborate to us, what is the situation in matters junior secondary school transition?
Thank you so much. As you have heard, Mr. Namasaka, the deputy teacher of Kajiado Primary School. Now, on matters concerning CBC in our schools, I want to say that we are still facing challenges. We have started, but we have several challenges, numerous challenges that are embedding the smooth implementation of the said curriculum. First of all, we are facing the challenges of, first of all, the support from parents, the preparedness of parents. Given that these parents, they have very little knowledge to do with the CBC, this new curriculum, given that for them they did 844 or other systems. And you see, they are supposed to be at the center of the implementation of this new curriculum. So we find that a lack of knowledge on what entails CBC, you find that they don't play their part as required as parents. We also have another challenge of the curriculum content, the structure itself. When you look at it, it's a bit technical, it's a bit tough compared to the level of learners. So sometimes you find you go to a given class, you try to explain, and you see because of the nature of the content, sometimes learners get it very difficult to comprehend. Something else is about ICT. Quite a number of teachers they lack the skill of ICT, and you see CBC entails ICT. There is integration of ICT in CBC. So we find that most teachers don't have these skills, and even those ones who have, they have faced the challenge of the network. Some places are very remote and such that you cannot get a network there, and therefore trying to employ the use of ICT is a challenge. There is also a problem of lack of material, teaching and learning resources, material like textbooks. There is a big challenge of textbooks. You find that you go to bookshops, most parents cannot easily access this, and it's because of maybe unpreparedness. CBC is something, if you ask me if it was a good thing to be introduced in Kenya, I will say without blinking my eye that it was. But you see, the issue lies with the preparedness. How were we prepared, and how much do we allocate to start off this curriculum? So those are the challenges that we are virtually facing as we try to implement the new curriculum.
Mm-hmm. And given that most residents here in Kajiado County are pastoralists, and also there is the effects of drought, how has this affected the students here at Kajiado County?
Now, as you know, Kajiado County, the main economic activity here is pastoralism. That is the main source of livelihood for residents in Kajiado. And therefore, you realize that with a prolonged drought, very many parents have been affected. One, taking their pupils or their students to school has been a nightmare to them. The situation is actually terrible. And you see, taking pupils to school, students to school, is all about resources. You need to pay fees, you need to buy other very essential requirements like textbooks, pens, and what have you. These children cannot also learn on empty stomach. And I see it is something that is really affecting children. Also, parents are now struggling to at least ensure that the very little or few animals that are remaining, they can survive. And therefore, sometimes there is that tendency of parents pulling pupils out of school so that at least they can ensure that the little animals that are remaining, at least they can help in making them survive. So these are the challenges that we are facing. And then also, when you look at the distance from one school to another, the distance is vast. So learners walk for quite some long distances to access education, and it's a challenge that we are facing, and something needs to be done.
Okay. Well, now I'll go to the CEC Education Kajiado County. You've heard the challenges that Mwalimu has spoken about. How is the county prepared to tackle those challenges, and also to just get to understand what is the status in terms of junior secondary schools at the moment?
At the moment, I'll start by introducing myself as Jeremiah Lentaro, CC in charge of education, Kajiado County. I'll start on the onset by saying that CBC is a good curriculum. The only challenge that is there is the teething problem that we are experiencing, but it brings on board everyone, because in the previous curriculum, a lot of our children were left behind. You realize that after Form 4, around 80%, 70 to 80% of our children get D+ and below. That means that a lot of them get wasted because they know they end up not going anywhere. But with CBC and the pathways, it is the government is determined to have a curriculum where everybody is brought on board. So I'll start by saying it's a good curriculum, but challenges are there. And as government, we are trying to bridge those gaps. One of the challenges, the main challenge that we have, as Mwalimu has said, is the issue of the feeding program. Because you realize animals have moved away. A lot of our animals are right now in Kitui, others are in Tanzania, others are in Nakuru. So a lot of our children have also gone with those animals. Like last year, we had 8,800 children who are in standard, they are in grade 6 then. We expected 100% transition. but we have only realized 80% transition because of the movement. But we are making arrangements with the local chiefs and the administration, the county administration, to make sure that we get all these children back to school. We also have provided fortified porridge in our schools so that it attracts and retain our children in school. We understand the situation is worrying at the moment because there is no food for the children, and the diet is also not very good. So that is why we have provided fortified porridge to all our children, and this has been a game changer in our schools, because even those children who are herding goats around the schools are coming to the school because of the porridge, and that has helped us to retain these children in school. So we have also had a program of water tracking in school, because a lot of our boreholes in the interior are drying up. So water has been a big problem. So we are working with partners like World Vision and other partners to make sure that we provide water to our schools all over in the county. So that is what we are doing at the moment, and that has helped us to attract the numbers that we have at the moment. So transition rate at the moment is 80%. We hope to get 100% in the next few days, because I think around 2 weeks back it was around 50%. But because of the campaign that we've been engaged in, the percentages have gone up. So we hope to get the 2,000 children who are out of school back to school in the near future.
Well, thank you very much. That is the CEC Education, Kajiado County. And I'm going to engage the Director, Disaster Management, World Vision, who is Gashun Mwakazi. What is World Vision doing to help the community here in Kajiado County in terms of matters education?
Thank you very much. World Vision, as a non-governmental organization, we are complementing the government efforts together with our partners and our donors to help the government retain children, those who are already in school, attract children, those who are yet to be enrolled. But more importantly, at such times as now, when the country is experiencing this prolonged drought, this being the fifth subsequent crop failure, as we have seen in the just released short range assessment report of the performance of October-November rains of 2022. Kajiado is one of the arid and semi-arid counties of this country which have been affected by the drought. So as World Vision Kenya, we are supporting schools by tracking clean and safe water to schools, so that programs like the officer has mentioned here, that they have bought food that is helping them to prepare meals in school, but without water that cannot happen. So we are tracking clean water to help preparation of school meals in school. We are also providing parents with cash, which is helping them to buy food for their families, so that these parents are able to fend for their children, support, because we are giving 50%, and also be able to release their children to go to school. We are also with support from our partners like the government of America and other partners, WFP and UNICEF. We are carrying out nutrition, health extension services or health services to the communities.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was Gashon Mwakazi, who is the Director, Disaster Management, World Vision. We've also engaged the Jeremiah Olencharo, who is the CEC Education, Kajiado County, as well as Peter Namasaka, who is the Deputy Head Teacher, of Kajiado Primary Boys Boarding School here in Kajiado. And we'll continue to traverse this county for the next few days to get to understand more matters on what is happening in this county on matters education for the next few days. Back to you, Regina and Kioria. I'm Sarafina Robi from Kajiado County.
Thank you for that brief from County 034. Now we take a quick breather. Remember, you are watching Changing Tides, and our big question tonight is, what are your views on CBC? Our Twitter handle is at KBC Channel 1.
Enjoy a selection of the best. Regina Ray and Tingazi.
Bado hujamwambia unamlike. Umerealize hajamwachilia mkono kutoka nikuje hapa.
Love blossoms in Mexico with the Trier sisters in Las Bandidas.
I beg you, please don't go. I want you to be the happiest man in the world with a woman who appreciates and respects you.
An array of music rave.
Make me lie when I don't want to.
Blues.
You are my everything.
Two local gems. And we sit to chat with the Diambo.
You know, I can't even tell whether you're looking at me, seeing me. With the Louis Vuitton.
Classic comedy.
Makono too. Say that
again. Enjoy the Divas programming this February only on KBC Channel 1. Kenya's watching.
I'm Marie Yangbo here in the southern parts of the country in Oloitoktok, where, as you can see, farmers have lost their crops to the ongoing drought. Some families are even feeling the pressure to marry off their girls for an income. That story coming soon on KBC Channel 1.
Nimesahau kucheza Loto Moto. Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number 757070. Account number andika neno Loto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000.
Aulali.
Lipa kisha subiri draw. Welala. Nitakutimizia ndoto zako. Milioni 2 usiamini. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLB.
Alonso, I hate you. I hate you. I hate you.
Tell Fabiola I love her. And I'm not going to give up.
Whatever you say, Malena. Let me just warn you about one thing. You take extra care not to double-cross me.
Especially now that I'm marrying Amparo. Or perhaps you've forgotten that she told you that from this day on you obey me and do everything that I say.
I'm sorry, what? I am asking you. Why does it bother you, the idea of Ruben and I together?
Good evening. Now from County 34, we head to County 01, where our very own June Karisa Mbele is engaging a panel on matters CBC, the implementation and the teething issues. Over to you, June.
Thank you, Regina. I'm joined by Mr. Robert Aupemi. He is the chairman of the Parents Association here in Mombasa County. And of course, I'm also joined by Honorable Badi Twalib. He is the Member of Parliament of Jomvu. And just recently, he did some interventions with parents who are having complaints with the CBC. But let's start off with Mr. Aupemi to just paint us a picture. Where are the parents on the CBC structure in terms of monetary and their satisfaction here in Mombasa, or if you have any influence outside the county, you can also brief us.
Thank you and good evening, June. For education to be stable, to get the quality required, all the structures must be in place, and that also demands for CBC. There are 4 main structures which are required. Number 1 is the parent. There should also be the board of management. There should also be the child, who is also the main stakeholder. There should be teachers. There should be infrastructure. They're very important. If we want to have not just education, or we want to have quality education. Our feeling as part CBC was rushed. If you do an evaluation, an analysis in the entire county, you realize that CBC in public school was only given one teacher against a class of 8 students who are joining the junior secondary school, against several subjects which are supposed to be covered. So you realize that even the resources are not there. The infrastructure, we are asked to, that schools should share with the nearby secondary schools. And those nearby secondary schools may not also be having enough resources because they are also overpopulated. So there was need before implementation of CBC and junior secondary that parental sensitization was very important.
Where does the shoe bite when it comes to parents involving themselves with the CBC? Is it the structure? Is it the infrastructure? Is it the monetary element of it? Where does the shoe bite?
The shoe bites mainly on aspects of monetary. In junior secondary, we were informed by the CS Machogu that capitation will be sent for each child of 15,000, and parents should not pay anything. They should only take their children to school to join junior secondary. But now what's happening? Parents are being asked to pay money. The government is not coming in to defend the parents. I know it's so sad, it's a sad situation, because we've been advised not to pay. When you go to school, you realize that whoever is there in charge of that school is demanding that a parent should pay. A parent should pay, or a child should come with a desk. And the same uniform which you are advised to buy outside the school is still being sold in those schools. So the parent is left at the mercy of the teacher in charge. That actually brings an issue that we parents, as much as there are pronouncements which are being made by the government, we are not being defended by the same body, by the government and the ministry. We are not being defended. This is harmonized. And parents get to know which way to follow. And that's why you realize, that some parents are preferred even to take their children who are in grade 6 to class 8 so that they can continue the 8-4. Parents trust 8-4 most than junior secondary. Why? Because there was no proper sensitization. The ministry has concentrated on sensitizing teachers who have gone through the teachers' college, through the university. They have been trained on the same CBC, and they have ignored the parent.
Point will come back to that, but hapa juzi kati Mheshimiwa Badi tuliona ilibidi wewe uingilie kati kwa shule moja ambayo iko katika eneo bunge lako, kwa sababu wazazi walikuwa wametumwa waende wakatafute hela za madawati ili watoto wao waweze kurudi shuleni, na ikabidi wewe utoe pesa kutoka mfuko wako wa CDF ili kuona kwamba wale wazazi wameweza kusaidia. Je, ni taswira gani unaweza tuelezea ya wazazi wanaopitia na mfumo huu wa CBC?
Kwanza asante sana June kwa kutukaribisha hapa. It is very true it took my intervention to go to a certain school in my area over this issue of the infrastructure. Na tukiangalia just the way my colleague has said, the government has a capitation fee of 15,000 ambao wanasema watu watakani walipe, lakini it is true that they have that capitation fee of 15,000. But the question is, have they disbursed that money to respective schools? The answer is no. Kwa hivyo wanasema kwa watu wasilipe, lakini on the ground people are paying some money, wanaitishwa ya madesk na pesa nyingine ya kuambiwa waweze kulipa. As a member of parliament, I took my intervention to go to that school, lakini ilikuwa ni challenge ambao walikuwa nayo. lakini niliintervene tukapeana madesk na vile vile currently we are building classrooms kwa several areas kwa mambo ya junior secondary school. Mimi Junei nataka kusema kitu kimoja. First, we want to look at the pillars of CBC. It is envisaged that the CBC will articulate the development of a middle income country in which its people, its pupils, ama school-going children will embrace entrepreneurship first, able to engage in lifelong learning. Hiyo ndio kitu ambayo tunawataka kuwafundisha, perform more non-routine tasks, and as well be capable of more complex problem solving kwa mambo mengi ambayo tunataka kuwafundishia watoto. Lakini the question now poses, are we ready for that? The answer is no. The idea is good, but the timing is bad. Kwa hivyo mimi mpaka saizi kitu ambacho naweza kusema, government should do more in order to implement this new system. Ever since 1985 where we had the 844 system, as my colleague has said, ni kwa kuwa hivi sasa kuna wazazi ambao after their children have gone to grade 6, they skip grade 7 to go and register somewhere else for class 8 because they want to continue with the 844 system. This is basically what Honorable Kaluma said yesterday, and I want to thank and congratulate him so much for tabling that thing in parliament. Na wabunge wengi sana tuliona wakizungumzia over that issue. We have seen our good friend Osoro talking of the same and very many others. Kwa hivi sasa there is a challenge kwa sababu there is no way you can come with a system without proper infrastructure. And more so, 844 system ever since 1985 to date, ukiangalia hii ya CBC kutoka ilipokuwa imeanza Junei, ni kwa kuwa muda ni mfupi sana. Challenges, for example, one classroom of 80 pupils having one teacher is a problem. Kwa hivyo naona kuna shida that government needs to intervene. And as a member of parliament, I want to say this is a collective responsibility. It will take very many stakeholders. We as leaders, Parental Association officials, NAT officials, other stakeholders to come on board collectively to discuss on the way how the system of education will go on in this country. Yes.
As you rightly put it, the time and everybody has to come on board. But there is one thing that you mentioned earlier, which was whenever all these stakeholders are meeting, the parent is not given a conference because they are captures, but then the parents are demanding that there is a conference set up so that the parents themselves can give their grievances, because I have talked to several parents and they're talking to me, I am looking for money for school fees. So how will I look for money for rim papers, Manila papers, and all those things? And of course you have said that the government has pronounced themselves with the 15,000 shillings. But if a conference was held today, what are some of the proposals you'd give to either the implementers of this CBC so that the parents can feel comfortable going forward, because of course the tide has already changed?
June, change is good, and the only permanent thing in life is change. Parents have not refused to support CBC, but then the question is they lack information. So the most important thing is, first of all, sensitization of the parents. And remember, they are the main stakeholders. And the schools cannot be without the parents. What we are demanding as parents is that let truth be given. Let the government be given the truth. 90% of work which is being done in CBC is taken care of by parents. We are not refusing because there must be a parental responsibility. But then the question, in a cosmopolitan like Mombasa, where many parents are going out to work for their living, and most of the time when children are going to school, the parents may have left. When they are coming back from school, the parents are not yet back. what happens? You are asking the parents to be taking care of an assignment from school. This parent comes back at 10. We are here today with the Honorable.
Yes.
I have a child in CBC. Yes. By the time I get home, she will be asleep. And we have given that child to do a portfolio, to do a printout, to do a research using a smartphone or a laptop. How many families have laptops? How many families have smartphones? And even if they have, do they have the network? Can they afford bundles every day? And given that the statistics show that most of our parents are living below $1 per day, can they afford that? This is the research that is supposed to have been done before initiation of CBC. This research was currently, now because tides have changed, we demand that the government should come out with the truth, sensitize parents. The demands we'll make is let them come clean on the issues of infrastructure. Because when you're buying a desk as a parent to take to a school, that's infrastructure. If you are asked to pay money when the government has said that it's supposed to be free. So where should the parent go? Who should the parent believe? You bring conflict between the teacher and the parent. Because if you're talking about 15,000 and you have not dispersed this 15,000, this teacher needs to run the school. How is he or she going to run the school? So we'll demand that the parents get to know very well about the curriculum. The parents get to know what is or her parental obligation is. Clearly stipulated out. Even if it's important, it should be documented. And I'm very happy that honorable members discussed. I watched and I saw they were discussing on CBC yesterday in Parliament, and it was a heated debate. So it's important that we parents should also come out, stand for our rights, because we have been taken for granted for long. So I think it's important that let the government come out, talk about the capitation and these other important issues.
For the interest, Buddy, your closing remarks, because I know people come to your office just for the fees. Now imagine now you're giving more in terms of infrastructure. What should you do? Is the capitation for CDF, should it be increased so that you can help the parents cushion their, as you wind up also?
Interest of time, definitely capitation fee should be increased, because that money is not enough, and furthermore, leave alone that money is not enough. It's not even there to the schools. And I want to point out on the challenges that we are facing as parents. For example, in CBC, we have what we call parental responsibility, whereby you need to go and sit down with your son or daughter to see the kind of homework has been given so that you can do it collectively as a team. I have a son by the name Twalib who is in CBC. I'm here at KBC doing an interview. By the time when he reach home, definitely he will be asleep. So these kind of things, I think, have got so many challenges that we have. One, lack of parental support. Two, curriculum structure that we have. And then, as I've said, we have got so many students with very many less teachers. And as well, they should introduce the proper courses to have more teachers. Because if yesterday you have heard about Honorable Meli talking of having requisite funding from Parliament for infrastructure, building laboratories, hiring of teachers. It seems there is a challenge on this system. So the system is good, but its time has not yet come for it to be implemented in this country. So my closing remarks, let us all join hands together. All the stakeholders should come together to see how they can review this system in order to streamline it, to come with in a better way.
For staying with us until this late. It has been an honor for you giving us your sentiments. It is a worry that most parents are choosing to skip grade 7 and admit their children to class 8 so that they can avoid the CBC part. This is a concerning part from the parents. So as we continue this discussion, I hand it back to you, Regina Manyara, as you continue talking more on what can be done on that particular aspect. From Mombasa County, I'm Juni Karisa. Have a good night.
Thank you, June, and your panel there. Now, over to you, Kioria there. What does your panel have to say in regard to the issues that have been raised in Mombasa? To you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Regina. To start us off, probably starting with the Senator, the Chairperson of the Education Committee, and the Senator from Murang'a, Senator Joe Nyuto. The aspect of capitation has actually been raised a lot by the Member of Parliament for Jomvu. Why don't schools have capitation just yet? The 15,000 per student.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kioria. Maybe that may not be exactly the right person to answer that question because, of course, funds are disbursed at the Treasury. And of course, the CS education should be in a better position to answer that. But I think I want to say that everything is being done in bits and pieces. Kioria, this government inherited a parched economy. There was nothing in the coffers, and that is why even CDF is being dispatched in part. And I believe that the same will be happening, or maybe has already started happening with capitation to junior secondary schools.
There's obviously still the aspect of financial constraints, like the Senator points out.
Yes.
Problem is, our parents aware because they're the ones feeling the pinch.
I would say that you have heard from Mombasa, where we have been told that capitation funds have not been given to schools. And therefore parents are being asked to pay money by school managers. I would say that the way the Senator has said, issues of funding of education are being done by the ministry and from the Treasury. We who are outside, we may not know until there is total evidence that the money has been dispersed to the schools. So I would say that currently, as you have heard from Mombasa, the money has not been dispersed. And Mheshimiwa has explained. So there's an issue that needs to be sorted out as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. Yes. Looking at the research that you did the other day, of course the sample size, as you said, was 3,000. But I want a very quick reaction of some of the issues you've had being raised from Mombasa. And I think they're cross-cutting, looking at them.
For instance, I've heard, I don't know whether it's a parent, say there is that preference for some parents who have children in grade 6 to have them not to go to grade 7 and then have them go to class 8 so that they can be able to sit for class 8 exams. That's a clear indicator of the uncertainty. You know, many people are not bold enough to face the future where they are not certain. So they don't know, maybe, and that's one of the issues that was raised in terms of confidence Kenyans have on the curriculum reform, where I find almost half are not sure of where we are not going out, they are not certain, and they're not all that happy with the way things are being handled. One of the issues that has been raised is that parents who are the core, at the center of this, their voices is not heard because they want things to be done this way, or even if it's hard, it's not implemented according to the way they want to implement it. So I think what we need to do, because one thing CBC has to move on, I think there should be more involvement. One of the things that have been raised is awareness and understanding. I think we have superficial understanding of what CBC is, because if we can be able to package this information quite well and get to know the advantage of CBC over the previous curriculum, and this message is synthesized in a way and packaged in a way that even as someone in the village can be able to understand. I believe even parents will also put in some effort so that they can be able to support the process. Not only that, even come up with local ways and local solutions in order to be able to support the CBC.
Civic education. Of course, the Member of Parliament for Jomvu was making reference to some debate that was in the National Assembly yesterday about disbanding CBC altogether. And I think once we've listened to the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Senator, that's what we'll pick up, whether that debate is healthy, should we just drop it all together, and what happens. But for now, the Cabinet Secretary for Education, that is Ezekiel Mashogu, spoke to our reporter Gladys Mungai earlier. Here is that interview.
Thank you, Gladys.
Yeah, we are very happy to hear from you about CBC. And my very first question would be, what is your take about the success of the competence-based curriculum so far? Someone might ask, it has been years since we started, the country kicked off the implementation of CBC. From where you sit, are you satisfied with how the country has run this particular curriculum so far?
In 2016, the government started training and retooling teachers, preparing teachers for this particular system, so that we have a number of teachers who have undergone training in pedagogy and other methods of teaching, so that as much as we have all the schools right from primary to junior secondary, even once we get into senior secondary, we are saying that somehow we are prepared as far as teacher capacity is concerned for them to be able to undertake the necessary work that they are supposed to do in imparting the knowledge to our pupils. And this particular one is also centered on the runner, such that actually not so much on the teacher part, the runner, but the necessary skills for teachers to teach this particular level of education, CPC. I think a number of them are prepared properly, and we have built the capacity at that particular level such that they should be able to teach. Because we have had an engagement with World Bank, and we will be getting support of amounts ranging to 10 billion or so, which will be able to put up about 80,000 laboratories in all our schools countrywide.
Waziri, various stakeholders are saying that the competence-based curriculum was hurriedly implemented, and they're actually calling for the government to sort of halt the continuation of CBC until such a time when the country is ready. What do you have to say about that?
The greater percentage of Kenyans, 68% of the report that was initially given to the president actually said we should be able to proceed with competence-based curriculum, CPC, and it was only, I think, about 14% who said we should be able to do away with the system. So generally, a greater percentage of Kenyans say yes, we have few challenges which we will be able to handle as a country, which we will be able to mitigate by taking various measures which as a government and a ministry will be able to undertake. But generally, Kenyans are at a level where they accepted that we should be able to go ahead with CBC.
Let's talk about probably the budget allocation for CBC. How much do you probably as a ministry are looking forward to the allocation? And talk to us also about the 15,000 capitation per student. Is it really enough? Comparing to, like you're alluding, the private schools are already ahead. Does that in a way disadvantage people in public schools, or what is the government doing to ensure that there is a catch-up so that those learners who are in public schools are not left behind by their counterparts of private?
Yeah, thank you very much, Gladys. Those in public schools are not going to be disadvantaged in any way. One is that the government has been able to procure 17.8 million textbooks covering each and every subject in this curriculum, as it were. And as I said, the books have been dispatched to each and every school that is having junior secondary school. Two, we have also come up with a figure of 15,042 per student, which will also be given to each and every school, considering the number of enrollment, the number of students. We are also engaging various other stakeholders and development partners. One such partner that we have been able to engage with is World Bank, which has also agreed to finance CPC with 10 billion, and out of the 10 billion, as I said, according to our estimate, to construct a proper preparatory requires about 1.2 million. So we are also going to give that money to various primary schools in all parts of the country, and of course we will be doing this with the support of members of parliament.
Let's have a look at in the issue of the directive by the government that schools with less than 45 students should be merged. When one listens to such a directive, the issue of schools in arid and semi-arid areas arises, and it's very likely that some of the schools in such regions don't have the capacity of 45 students or 45 learners per se. What is going to happen to students in those particular regions? And also talk to us about the issue of congestion, bearing in mind that when you move schools from this particular school to school B, the issue of congestion arises.
Yeah, thank you, Gladys. We did come up with the guidelines and were able to set a very clear criteria on the formula that was going to be used in order to register junior secondary schools. And of course, one of the factors that we were considering was the level of enrollment. We did set a figure of 45 per classroom, such that the number we are supposed to have is 45. But the other very key factor that we consider is the distance from one school to another. That is one other very key factor. So that if we find one school is so far from another, we don't have to go by the figure of 45. We can actually even come down to 20. The purpose of setting 45 as a criteria in order for a school to succeed as a junior secondary school is because there are a number of primary schools which are so near to each other. But in other areas which we have said that schools are far from each other, we have actually gone to 20, where we even have 20 students, and we are flexible in this. We have said where we find that the distances are far from each other and broader school do not qualify, we are flexible, and we have given so many of such schools to qualify as junior secondary schools.
The government is speaking about 100% transition into junior secondary schools, but as late as Monday last week, over 200,000 students are yet to report. Are you probably aware of where they are, and what are you doing as a government to ensure that every other school-going child is enrolled at a particular junior secondary?
We are monitoring and getting the figures on daily basis. The announcement I made last week on Monday, the number that had not been able to register in junior secondary school was then 201,000 out of the 1.2 million that are supposed to be in junior secondary. As of today, specifically today, the number is now 77,000, and we are having a breakdown of the counties which are not doing well, and it is for that particular purpose that I'm having a meeting with the county commissioners of Kware, Kilifi, and the other local leaders of those two counties and the other counties that we are not doing well, so that in those counties we also make sure that we are having 100% transition.
After junior secondary school, learners are supposed to proceed to senior secondary schools, but you already have teething problems being experienced under the junior secondary school. What is the government doing to ensure that as students proceed to secondary schools, the problems or the challenges we have under the junior secondary are not replicated when it comes to the government implementing CBC under senior secondary schools?
Yeah, thank you. We are working proactively in a sense that as we move forward, we will be able to retool the teachers, many more of them, so that as far as teachers are concerned, we have a proper level of preparedness, proper capacity building, and as you are aware, Gladys, this particular year, government employed 30,000 teachers, and a good number of them that were employed are those that are going to teach in junior secondary. As we go to senior secondary, we are getting better prepared because we have enough time for us to be able to prepare. And you know, in senior secondary, we are going to have 3 pathways.
Ozeri, you mentioned about Kwale and Kilifi being some of the regions where learners have not reported 100% to junior secondary. Could you probably mention to us some of other counties who are facing the same challenges apart from the 2?
Yes, we have other counties, Gladys, like counties where we are having insecurity. Turkana, for example, we are also not having very impressive registration in that particular county, and in week or 2 I will also be going to Turkana for that particular purpose. I know there are schools which have been affected in one way or the other, and as a government we are also dealing with those particular problems. There are schools where we require food, and one of the other things that we are doing as a government, particularly the 26 ASIL counties, we are providing school feeding program in a primary and a junior secondary school. So I'm sure food is already arriving in those counties, and this is one other factor that I'm sure even those who are at home will be able to come back to school.
Thank you so much, Ozeri, for your time. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
All right, that's the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Ezekiel Mashogu, of course, giving us some insights there a little bit on the CBC. Senator, of course, bring it back now to studio. I had promised we would talk about the debate of dropping it or not, but I think that's too early. Let's just spend some time just looking at the system and see whether it has problem. And of course, relying on a research done by Toweza East Africa, of course, shows that 48% yes, that of parents support CBC, but there's quite a number that feel that CBC is very costly. Let's start with the costing, Senator. Why would you have a school, for example, a private school, asking for 1 ream of paper? I don't know, they want what tomorrow? But that is not the same requirement being asked of a student from a public primary school.
Thank you very much, Kioria. And I would have preferred that I deal with professional matters in education, not about cost. Because being a teacher by profession, I would have been more comfortable dealing with the professional matters. Like the matter raised by Daktari, that some parents are preferring to maybe collude with some head teachers. And to take their learners who are supposed to be joining junior secondary school or grade 7, and they take them to class 8 so that they can take KCP. I think I want to take this opportunity.
Go ahead.
I want to take this opportunity to beseech parents, to ask parents. They cannot afford to make that mistake. You cannot take a child who has been socialized, who has been taught under CBC for 6 years, and you take them to a KCPE class. I mean, to an 844 class. You will be failing your child. You will be taking your child to unfamiliar territory, unfamiliar waters. Professionally, we cannot even fathom that, and I think even the head teachers who could agree to such an arrangement actually should be warned that they are spoiling, those learners for life. But on the issue of costing, I think it's a matter of people taking advantage of the confusion. And when something is new, there is always that confusion. Why would a teacher ask for a whole ream of paper from a learner? I mean, what do they want them to do with the whole ream of paper? And so I think the issue of cost, I think there are some people exaggerating the issue of cost. I think CBC, people should support CBC parents should support CBC, government should support CBC, because all of us are stakeholders. These are our children. They are our learners. They will be our doctors treating us tomorrow. They'll be our engineers making roads for us tomorrow. And we cannot afford to take advantage of the situation. And so, maybe to answer your question, let people not exaggerate the cost of CBC. CBC, if properly implemented, will be the game changer in our country. But remaining on professional matters, and I dare say this, Kioria, that if I were the one making the decision, I wouldn't have allowed junior secondary school to be domiciled in primary school.
You would have allowed it to continue?
I would have insisted that the junior secondary school be domiciled in secondary school. Why? Because we gave in to the demands by parents that these learners are would be too young if they were going to be allowed to go to secondary school and be in the same environment with some learners who are some like 5-6 years older than them. Kioria, these learners were once with these Form 4 students in the same primary school at the same time. So that should not have been a major consideration, because the major consideration that I would have looked at professionally was, now we domicile junior secondary school in a primary school. Are the teachers in a primary school properly prepared to handle secondary school curriculum? Do we have enough teachers? Do we have enough facilities? Do we have science labs in primary schools? And so there was a host of other more important things, professional matters that should have been considered. Not just the matter of parents, just because they do not want to part with their learners, and then we give in and create an even bigger problem. So what we did was just to massage the ego of parents. But professionally, I can tell you, we have challenges.
All right, let me hear from the parent, the person representing parents here, Silas. Because what the senator is saying, there were painful decisions to be made, but it appears like the government succumbed to the whims of parents.
One, let me begin with the issue of costing. When it comes to private schools, I told you that private schools are totally in business. So they make their own decisions. The government cannot control them as far as that is concerned. That's why they can ask for 20, 30 reams of paper. They have the right of doing that because parents are able to pay.
But the policy directive comes from the Ministry of Education.
But now that's business. And that's what the government says always, take your child to a private school at your own risk. So when you take a child to a private school, you should be ready to do what? To meet their costs, because that's private. Public, what I would say is that if the government thought in terms like, during my time when I was in school, several years back, we had something called the Kenya Schools Equipment Scheme, a department in the Ministry of Education. This department was in charge of supplying school materials, to supply pencils, erasers, textbooks, exercise books, even up to school milk now. If that department was established earlier, at the time of the beginning of the start of the CBC, by now that department will be caring for the supplying of those materials. So parents will not be bothered with this question of costing. They will get that fully from the government. When it comes to the issues of professionals, as my brother is saying here, that domiciling this children in a private school was not wise. It was wise because, one, the secondary schools that had been suggested to host a junior secondary school students didn't have infrastructure. For example, I went visiting one school where in the past you'll find that in a cube they will spend there for 4 students. Right now in those cubes there are 6 students in a cube of 4 students. Even in climbing on the beds, the top deckers, the students have to climb like frogs. They have to jump over to go to their beds. So supposing now we added there the junior secondary school students again in the same schools, would they be sleeping in the bush? So there will be no space in terms of infrastructure. That's why we thought that in private schools, the children will go to schools and go back at home, back to their parents, to ease that issue of congestion in schools. In terms of dormitories and dining halls.
Let me ask you a more direct question, Silas.
Yes.
Do you feel more confused with this system, obviously, that came with the presidential working party, or you felt more confused when it was junior secondary being domiciled in secondary schools?
I don't feel confused myself.
You're fine with the system now?
For me, I don't see any confusion. The thing is that we are saying junior secondary school is facing what we call teething problems. And within a short time, those ones will be over.
All right.
And they'll pick up. Yes. I say that Rome was not built in a day. So we are building Rome in Kenya in the name of what? Junior secondary school. And it's going on and it will pick up.
All right.
That's why we are saying that CBC is there to stay. Yes.
Daktari, in the study that you did, and I was looking at some very interesting figures. 14% of your numbers, of course, say, or the 3,000 that you sampled, feeling that teachers are inadequately prepared to handle CBC in schools. But interestingly then, only 10% of the people you polled propose more training. Was that a contradiction of some sort?
One of the challenges, as you have seen, cost came as number one.
Yeah.
So we had other challenges, one of them training and all that, which came later. But as you are aware, because this was, we allowed for multiple responses. So you find that there might be that kind of correlation, whereby you find there is kind of confusion. So our aim was to look at the one that is ranked high, because someone can say the cost is an issue, and then at the same time say training is also another issue. So we cannot look at it that way. Okay. What we did is just to rank and get to see the challenges that had the highest percentages and all that. But besides that, getting back to the issue that you had raised, in terms of awareness, we found 96% of citizens say that they are aware of CBC. But what is now coming out, because for instance, like what Mheshimiwa has said, if you had professionals being asked whether they think in terms of junior secondary school to be domiciled, maybe they could have given a different answer. Now, the challenge here is, now, to me, from what I'm seeing here, it's like either the citizens are either misinformed or they are disinformed or they are underinformed. Because now, I don't know, with such kind of a population, how do you now subject them to make some judgment? Do you want this on this? One thing, they don't have the right information. And I want to get back to the ministry. What budget have they set to train the parents or to promote awareness among them? Because one thing, they are the solution to this problem, because they have ways in which they can be able to have local solution, of which CBC
I see they're even complaining that they're being overworked.
Exactly. Now, I'm imagining someone like me or any other person who was trained in the previous system. Look at it this way. The teacher there is trained to handle CBC. Now, the parent here, who is also key in terms of helping the child to learn, was trained, or his orientation is under 844 of the previous system. Do you see that there be some kind of collision? So I think what they spent in terms of training the teacher, they need to find ways, better ways in to inform the parents, such that even some of the decisions they are making, like switching from domiciling the whatever in primary school, probably that's something that could have been handled in a more professional way. In addition to that, even the secondary schools that were supposed to domicile junior secondary school were supposed to be day school, from what I read, unless maybe there were a few changes that were made. But basically, that's what the initial plan was.
All right. Senator, 30,000, you alluded to the 30,000 teachers that have been employed by the Kenya Kwanza administration. Distribute that across schools, you realize that's just like about one teacher for every school, 14 subjects. I mean, isn't that confusion in itself?
Thank you for that question again, Kioria. And I think just allow me to correct my friend Silas. I did not say that it was not wise to domicile junior secondary school in primary school. I only said if I was the one making the decision. So it may have been wise, I don't know. But if I was the one, so I wanted to make that correction so that it may not create an impression that that decision was not wise, because this is a decision that actually was made from the advice that the Presidential Working Party gave to the President, and my President cannot make a decision that is not wise. And so I wanted to correct that. So number two, talking about teachers, that is what I am saying is something that we ought to have considered. And if you remember, right from the onset of this interview, I told you that the major problem that we have now is that nobody was prepared, say pre-election, Nobody was prepared that the junior secondary school was going to be domiciled in primary school. We all knew it was going to be in secondary school. And there comes also another professional issue, that of the psychology of the learner. These learners that were in grade 6 last year were prepared. They had that mental set that they were going to leave their primary schools and join a secondary school for junior secondary school.
They were leaving their colleagues back.
Yes. And so, you know, this is not a matter that you just take lightly. We are talking about learners who feel disenfranchised because this is not what they were prepared for. And when somebody has a mental set, then it is very hard for you to remove them from there and take them somewhere else. And so what we are saying is, yes, government has employed 30,000 teachers, and I want to thank my government, the government of UDA, for that. But those numbers may not be enough. But the TSC CEO has assured us that she, with her commission, is doing mapping of teachers who had furthered their education and acquired and attained degrees and diplomas, so that they can be, you know, redeployed to teach junior secondary school. But the most ideal situation would have been to maybe allow the learners to go to join juniors to join secondary school. I mean, in junior secondary, that is, domicile it in secondary schools, and then we see what we can do to add teachers or to employ more teachers to handle. I mean, in secondary schools, the issue of that there were no rooms. Of course, there were some classes that were constructed, but majorly the problem that we are having with CBC, and I think I want to support Silas on that, and I say that off air, is that parents were not involved, they were not well prepared, probably because the late minister, God rest his soul in peace, did not cultivate a very good working relationship with parents, and I think more consultation should have been done with parents, and even sensitization done to parents. Otherwise, as we speak here, we have learners that are somehow confused.
All right. Yeah. Still, as Senator talks about more consultations, tell us about the level of involvement for parents and teachers, because at some point it sounds like teachers are being resistant to this. I mean, parents are resistant to this change, but then there's also an aspect of non-involvement. Was there any involvement at all in the initial stages of rolling out CBC?
From the beginning, I told you that parents have never been involved. They only hear about CBC. You see that? There is a hearsay to them that CBC is going on. And that's why that perception that CBC may not succeed. To the parents, as Mheshimiwa is saying here, they have never been on table. Parents should be sitting in the task force right now. The president of the working party, they should be sitting there because they're the main stakeholders in the education sector. They're those who send their children to school. If they try to withdraw their children tomorrow, where will the government get children in schools? So the parents are not in the task force. The decisions that are being done in the task force, mainly, some of them even saw the other day, the president was rejecting them, telling the task force that what you have done sometimes is not well, it's not wise. I think Mheshimiwa saw that. They were done with a report that it was not conclusive. I would say, if I ask today, if you check on the terms of reference that the task force is working on, there is one strong term of reference known as parental empowerment and engagement. Right now, we are campaigning that the Minister of Education should come out very fast, and Mheshimiwa get this when you go to Parliament, that let the Minister of Education work with the Parents Association quickly to have this parental empowerment and engagement program rolled out immediately to the parents. For them to have that feeling that now they are getting what? They are being involved in the what? In the CBC, whether transition or not, they should be involved. That parental empowerment program should be rolled out. All right. Two, what if the parents are complaining? Let the government also listen to them. Probably we can also have another stakeholders forum where everybody, all the stakeholders come back on board again. Another? And review. Yes, another open forum for all the stakeholders now. Forget about the task force. The other stakeholders again.
But the task force engaged you as parents and every other stakeholder.
We are saying this. You see, the other day the report was dismissed by the president, meaning that there's something they have not done that's not right. So what they did that was not right, now they have to go back on the drawing board again. Whom they consult, they have to come back on the ground again and seek advice from parents. All right. You see that? As I correct him again, I want to correct him. He said that if it was the transition was done in a professional way. I want to tell you that during the task force collecting views operation, even teachers who are professionals were involved. Everyone was asked to go and give the views. So it was done in a more professional way, only that maybe the understanding was not as other people expected. And that's why there's that kind of confusion.
All right.
That maybe someone's not understanding.
You know, interesting, because your research also talks about parent involvement, and there's quite a number that feels they're being overworked with the CBC system. But then I'm wondering, out of CBC, it has been clear that a parent will be a very critical cog in the implementation of CBC, so much so that they're also involved directly in the education of this child. Probably from your understanding, from what you picked from the ideas that were coming out from the people you sampled, why do they have a problem with being with their children? They feel they're being overworked.
I think it has been put quite clearly. When you look at the economical status of most of these parents, some of them, they are hustlers. Probably some of these parents come back at around 7 or 8. Then you find your child waiting for you, a list of things that he or she is supposed to do and all that. So it gets to a point, yes, there's that willingness to help, but sometimes, one, it might be above his or her capacity, which now makes him now look at it in a very negative way. Besides that, probably in terms of like the issue that they raised about the cost, as in it's beyond what they can be able to afford. Because, for instance, even in the rural area, and then they are supposed to do printouts and all that. And there's, the center where there is electricity, and it's quite far. So this person has to cycle, take a border to that, whatever. So that kind of involvement is what probably they are raising in terms of like, it's expensive, more involving. Yes, they have the willingness to support the process, but I think the means to achieve there, I think that's what is
becoming difficult.
Yes.
All right, let's head over to Regina to sample us a little bit of feedback, because earlier we asked what Kenyans really think about the CBC system. Regina, you have the response, and of course when we come back on this end, we shall just take closing remarks from the panel. Regina?
Now, before I actually sample that, Kioria, I had one question to your panel, and I'd want to direct it to Silas, who is the chair of the Parents Association, in regard to what then strategies would he recommend for the successful implementation of the CBC?
Successful strategies that you recommend for the successful rollout of CBC?
One is that the government must be committed to this process. When the government says that it's going to give money, like the 15,000 per child in public schools, it should be done on time. That's one. Two, teachers that are handling CBC should be trained, fully trained. Like now, we have 30,000 teachers who have been employed, direct from home to the classroom to handle CBC. Are you seeing this? A majority of these teachers have not gone for CBC training. They've only been given employment. So now they are teaching the junior secondary school students. What kind of methodology are they using? So teachers should be properly trained. Three, the government should hire enough teachers. Hire enough teachers to cater for the junior secondary school and the other classes within the CBC system. Four, parents must be involved for them to accept the system. If parents are not involved in the system, for example, as Dr. is saying, a child is given homework to go and take at home. Some parents are grandmothers who never went to school. And the children are coming at home and asking questions in Msamiati ya Kiswahili. And these parents don't even understand those things. Well, you see, the children end up saying that our parents are ignorant. Because they don't understand that these people don't went to what? To school. So parents should be well trained, and we do what you call capacity building for the parents.
Capacity building for
must be involved
for the parent. All right. Regina, very quickly.
Yes. Now, it seems that a majority of Kenyans who have responded to our question this evening, which has been your views. What are your views on CBC? We start off with Teresa Musai, who says more resources need to be put in place, especially for public schools. There is also a Twitter handle by Champagne Ochino Cinco 37. He says, the government with the aid of the education system and parents with the aid of its teachers are leading the future generation to a life from a different prison. I'm proud to have gone through the 844 system, and as for the CBC, there is no overnight success. It will be a long flight. Then Colombo Sokole. He says CBC is only practical in private schools and public schools are finding it difficult to implement it fully because of inadequate government support. While Gathengi Chris or Chris Murray, he says CBC is not good for now. On the other hand, Ambrose Mokoya, who is watching from Kisii County, says that hashtag Prime Edition, CBC is very expensive, especially in private schools. I do not support it. Then we also have, last but not least, says Robert Bine, who says, I thought the curriculum would be about exposing learners to life and situations. Contrary, we are keeping them in class for long hours. Thank you very much, each and every person who took time to respond to our big question tonight.
All right, of course, before we put a close, looking at those comments, and I'm taking just 1 minute as we wind up because time is really up. Looking at about 80% of our respondents clearly don't think CBC is headed in the right direction. That debate in Parliament yesterday, Senator, in 1 minute, is it time to bite the bullet and abandon CBC altogether?
Thank you very much. You know, it's easier said than done. If you say that we abandon CBC once and for all, you will be forgetting that we have about now 7 cohorts that have been under CBC. So these are our children that have been under CBC. If you scrap it, what do you do with them? So scrapping it for me is not the answer. Improving on implementation will be the game changer. All right. And so I think more resources to schools by government, that will help ease the burden of cost. And then more training and employment of teachers will help in this. And then let us sensitize the parents. But allow me to very quickly to tell Cyrus that we cannot say that we will not implement CBC because some children are being brought up by grandmothers. In Africa, it takes a whole village to bring up a child. If a grandmother is raising a child, let the neighbors help this grandmother in helping this child. Right. We must go back to our social fabric.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Do we drop it all together? You have 30 seconds. Time is up.
In brief, one, Mheshimiwa should understand that even when you're in school, if you ask a teacher a question and then he gives a wrong answer, telling that a chameleon is a reptile and therefore it can live in water, when it's supposed to be living on land, you should have that teachers. All right. So we are saying, if parents are told to teach children at home and they cannot do it, one is a mistake. Two, we cannot dare drop CBC. Okay. It is there to stay. The reason being, CBC concept is skill-oriented for our children, which is so marketable in the world. We are going global. We cannot go back to the system where children are carrying books, examination-oriented, just copying and stealing exams. We cannot let the children be practically exposed.
Thank you. Daktari, very quickly, 30 seconds.
What you understand, why we came up with CBC was to address the issues that was raised, the shortcomings with 844. So for me, we need to push on. The other thing is, what is the community involvement in this process? Because the community, as Mheshimiwa has put, and also Bona Silas has supported, the community has to be involved to make this process a success. The last thing is, there's no way we can plant a mango tree today and expect fruits tomorrow. We have also to be patient, and we have also to go look for manure so that we can be able to do everything possible to make the
What an interesting analogy, particularly when you consider that mangoes are only available in January. The people have to be patient. It's time for us to put a cap on a Prime Edition, of course, this special edition of Changing Tides. My name is John Jacob Kioria. We have Regina on the other side. Regina?
Have a pleasant evening.
Absolutely. Have yourself a good night.
Kupata Waibrania kama skiza tune yako, bonyeza *811 *817#.
Yesu Kristo ni yule yule, jana, leo na hata milele. Wahibrania 13:8.
Kupata Waibrania, bonyeza *811 *817#. *811 *817#.
If you'd like, please leave a message with me and I'll forward your message to Mr. Bai.
Goodness, how scary.
Did you bring your wallet? I can't find my wallet.
Can you give us a discount so that we will come back? It's nice to have regular customers, right? We work for a magazine, so we can write an advertisement for you.
You do their work today. As long as you finish your work, then this meal is free. How about that?
No new eggs for us, so I thought I'd help them hatch first, then big chickens and small chickens and eggs.
Then they're happy, but what about me?
Nimesahau kucheza Loto Moto. Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number 757070. Account number andika neno Loto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000.
Aulali.
Lipa kisha subiri draw. Welala. Nitakutimizia ndoto zako. Milioni 2 usiamini. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLB.
String up, and build back my good vibes, feel alright. But if we continue,
yeah, man.
It's the lowest lane. It's the way my brother, when I went insane, took me from the depths when I lost my name. Ooh, it's something I'm living for. Now everyone is wondering what's the change. They don't recognize I have so much to say, and I never thought someone could love someone